Blood and Salt by Kim Liggett. Read to you by me. Chapter 14. Punch Drunk. Following the ceremony, we moved into the meeting house, to an elegant ballroom on the third floor that dripped with garlands of wisteria and honeysuckle. Candlelight flickered off the wood-paneled walls, casting long shadows across the coffered ceiling. Banquet tables full of mystery meats and pickled everything stretched in front of us. There were giant bowls of punch, so high in alcohol content that the liquid burned my eyes before even reaching my mouth. A lady with a mountain of wild curls was scolding some little kids who were hiding under the table trying to sneak punch. A band made up of gut buckets, mandolins, washboards, fiddles, and spoons played folk music, a ranctuous marriage of English and Spanish styles. It was like going back in time. This could have easily been the 1800s. I spotted Rhys dancing with Beth. Well, not dancing really, just kind of bouncing around like a pogo stick, but he seemed to be enjoying himself. That is until Betsy Grimsby, Beth's half-cousin, glommed onto him again and pulled him away, parading him around like a trophy. The room buzzed. So what if they believed in some weird shit? I could picture my mother here so easily. Maybe coming here was the right thing for all of us. As Brennan led me through the gathering, everyone patted him on the back, shook his hand. I was surprised no one was asking him to kiss their baby. He seemed to be the golden boy of Quivira. First dance, first dance. A woman pushed forward, dragging a tall, weary-looking man with her. I'm Patricia Mendoza, and this is Gerald. She eyed me up and down, appraising me, her expression frozen in place. Her smile was a little frightening, like a cross between a beauty queen and a jack-o'-lantern. Where are Brendan's parents? Oh, it's nice to meet you. Before I could even finish my sentence, Miss Mendoza took my hand and pulled me onto the dance floor. Okay, I laughed. Sorry. Brendan shook his head in mock embarrassment as he followed close behind. As we came to an abrupt stop in the center of the dance floor, she maneuvered Brennan so he was facing me. What's going on? I asked, feeling the crowd press in around us. It's tradition, he smiled. I raised an eyebrow. There's more? A tall man with a twisty mustache, wearing a brocade waistcoat, turned toward the band, whistling through his teeth, and the band struck up a different tune, a slow and delicate pace. I knew where this was headed. Mrs. Mendoza placed my hand on Brendan's shoulder and his hand on my waist. Ooh, the crowd roared lavishly. Wouldn't it be easier to tell us to dance? I whispered. Brendan cracked up. His mother shot me a look of warning. Apparently this was her big moment. Together, she and her husband placed my other hand on Brennan's. The audience burst into cheers, making me flinch. Brennan squeezed my hand. Remember what I said? I nodded. Dance, make the old folks happy. I've got this. With tears in her eyes, Mrs. Mendoza latched onto her husband and backed away. Brennan gave me a reassuring smile before he started moving me around in circles on the crowded dance floor. I think he was leading me in a waltz, but I had no idea what I was doing. Soon the onlookers lost interest, and it felt like finally I could breathe again. Brennan was a gorgeous attraction, but my thoughts still wandered to Dane. I spotted him talking with a group of men across the room, and that tickling sensation spread over the surface of my skin, settling deep inside of me. He was more than handsome. I'd been around my fair share of pretty boys. This was something else, something chemical. I'd never doubt my mother's theory of attraction again. I watched Dane as inconspicuously as possible as he moved through the party. Even though he was mixed, people treated him with a certain amount of deference. All the girls took special notice of him. Clearly I wasn't his only admirer. Why was I being so ridiculous? He couldn't even look at me. Come to think of it, Dane seemed to look at everyone but me. The music changed to something more upbeat, a jig of some sort, and Brennan lifted me up and twirled me around. I couldn't help but laugh. There was an easiness about him. I tried to imagine what it would be like, picking someone to spend the rest of your life with based on their scent. Brennan wouldn't have been a bad choice. Fireworks didn't go off in my chest when he touched me, but maybe that was better. Who wants to spend their whole life getting burned? And Brennan didn't make me want to hurl when he touched me, which was a different kind of novelty. As we danced, Brennan filled me in on the Quivira gossip. The Henritys stick to their own, he nodded toward a grim-faced group, huddled up on the right side of the ballroom, and it's best to steer clear of the cheese balls. The Henritys always make the cheese balls. Got it. Henritys are weird. Don't eat their cheese balls, I smiled. The Grimsbys are good folk. Like Lou, she's a peach. But there are a lot of seers in that bloodline. I'd never met a seer until today. Consider yourself lucky. My friend Pete over there, he nodded toward a tall, rail-thin boy watching a group of girls dancing and carrying on. He's a Grimsby. He can't even entertain the idea of calling on a girl without one of his aunts telling him how it will end in tears. I looked around the room. What other kinds of spiritual gifts do people have? There are a couple of dowsers, people who can find water sources, A few finders, folks who can locate missing objects or sense their history. Cousin Hannity, when Ruth Hannity loses her teeth, which happens about once a day, he said, chuckling. But the gifts are diminishing with every generation, except for the mixed, of course. I perked up. What about the mixed? When Coronado left Quivira, his children stayed behind. They say there's black magic in their blood, and their gifts only seem to get stronger. But you are one of a kind, he said, with a grin as he spun me around fast. You are a Larkin, the first twin in your family, and the first conduit of your bloodline. Are there any other conduits at the party? I asked, my heart quickening at the thought. Of course not. He pulled back slightly, with a sour look on his face. A bitter feeling welled up inside of me. He lowered his head, his tone softening. I hope I didn't offend you. It's just, you're very different from the other conduits. You're very fortunate. Am I? As I felt my throat constrict. I tugged at the ribbon tied around my neck, but that wasn't the cause. I couldn't help wondering what it really meant to be a conduit. What I'd become if the protection marks weren't working anymore. A guy bashed into me. He twirled his partner around. It was Lauren. The way he scowled at me made me think it wasn't an accident. Brennan quickly moved us away, toward the far right corner of the ballroom. What's their problem? I asked as I peeked over Brennan's shoulder to find them glaring at us. That's my cousin Lauren, just being Lauren. And the one with the black eyes is Tommy. He's a little off-kilter, but he's a third cousin removed. He's got a little too much Henry blood, if you know what I mean. Yeah, well, from the looks of him, I wouldn't be surprised if that black eye was self-inflicted. How did you know? Brennan laughed. And over there, he nodded toward a distinguished-looking man who impeccably dressed with thick dark hair, a dab of gray at his temples, who was holding court near the buffet table. That's my uncle, Spencer Mendoza. He's a big deal around here. Spencer's eyes locked on mine. I staggered back a little. Are you okay? Brennan shot his arm down my lower back, supporting me. Yeah, I inhaled sharply as I arranged for my footing. I just got a little dizzy. I watched Spencer excuse himself and leave the ballroom. As he passed, I caught a whiff of parchment eucalyptus, but there was something foul underneath. I had no clue what just happened. I never set eyes on him before, yet I hated his guts. The commotion came from the center of the dance floor, and the band went quiet. Betsy Grimsby, my brother's admirer, seemed to have passed out. Rhys crouched next to her as Beth asked people to step back and give her some air. I wouldn't be surprised if she was faking to get my brother's attention. The girls of Quivira seemed to be old school like that. After making sure I was okay, Brennan excused himself to help. It was a relief. With all the attention to Eswell, it was the perfect opportunity to find Dane. Before my mother arrived and we left Quivira for good, I wanted an explanation for why he ran away earlier and why he was so cold to me at the wreathing ceremony. I felt I deserved that much. I spotted him walking out of the ballroom. I slipped through the crowd into the meeting hall, down one flight of stairs, where I discovered Spencer, Mendoza, and Dane talking quietly in the archway of the men's parlor. I ducked behind the tapestry curtain of the women's parlor directly across the hall from them. The boy has no power, Spencer said, but the girl's a conduit, a direct link to Katya. She's dangerous. She's not the vessel, and the summer solstice is almost here. Dane glanced down at his feet. I don't see why it matters anymore. Spencer seized Dane's arm. Who are you to say what matters anymore? Have you forgotten what you are, your duty? How could I? Dane pulled away from him, rubbing the inside of his wrist. Spencer took a deep breath and tugged down the hem of his button-down vest. Do as I say and consider yourself warned, he said, before turning and storming back upstairs to the ballroom. Dane dragged his hands through his dark hair. He turned to head down the next flight of steps, but he hesitated, like he wasn't sure if he should stay or go. I wanted to see his face. I wanted to know what he was thinking. He descended the stairs, and I couldn't help but follow, almost as if I'd never had a choice.